Welcome to Profit Sharing in the Real World. I'm your host, Danny Murphy. Podcast features commentary from Dick Erickson, founder of Suntire in North Florida and author of the book Profit Sharing in the Real World, which is available at Amazon.com. Dick started with one store in the 80s and expanded to 9 stores near Jacksonville and 2 in Tallahassee before selling the company in 2017. In today's episode, Dick and I are going to talk about how profit sharing affected customer service. Dick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny.
So there was a trickle-down effect that the profit sharing paid off in terms of customer service. Tell me about that.
Well, if you think about it, Danny, I think of any business that you interact with by buying something or visiting or something like that, how you get treated, which is part of the service, the treating and then fulfilling the job if you take on the getting involved with the company. The point being is way after the sale has been made and you leave, the things of that mean.
So, Dick, at Suntire, one of the byproducts of your profit sharing plan was great customer service. Tell me about that.
Well, the thing that became evident to me, and I grew up in kind of the rural part of North Dakota. Actually, it's all rural, but the point is interacting with people was not as much of an issue until I got into the tire business as far as doing something as a job, if you will. And when I got into this, I realized, how do I get my employees to give the kind of service that people can be possibly wowed by and enough that they'd come back and see us again would be one issue. Another issue is it would tell people about a great experience. And how do you give this kind of service? Well, you can explain things. First of all, it's got to be doable. You got to be honest about things. But the point is to get the employees in the mix of this, because they're the ones that are going to perform it. And the thing about it initially, I thought it'd be just the work part. How do I get them to do that job right every time? And and so that was part. But then I started realizing that there was another component possibly to this. And when I got introduced into profit sharing, I'm going, these guys now are coming at another level because they realize if they don't give that service, that customer might not come back. Of course, we touched on that earlier in the thought here. But the point is, they were the thing. If there was a screw up, own up to it. That's part of service. Take care of it. And the point is, they would watch themselves, and then pretty soon the next level started. They were watching their peers. And if someone wasn't doing his job right, it wasn't the boss that had to correct it. They would bring it up and say, listen, I think you're taking a shortcut here, or something's going on. But the point is, they started managing beyond themselves because there was something in it for them. I hate to put it around numbers like dollars and cents, but that is part of living. It's nice to have a nice check at the end of the month for doing a good job. And that was such a big issue.
So people on the front lines realized that providing excellent customer service, there was a payoff for that. There was a payoff for that in terms of the profitability of the store.
Yes. And so that was watching each other, helping out. Sometimes if something was out, it wasn't even, putting something to peer down and say, listen, you need some help on that one. Let me run over and help you because it won't turn out right if you're not getting a little help right now. Well, if the job was only the part of the shop that was theirs and they weren't looking anywhere else, these people came to work on time. They did things that sometimes can be a problem in a business, or I've got to get out of here. No, a lot of times it's at the end of the work period and saying, they leave a little early, clock out. Well, do you really want me to clock out? We got some customers we haven't finished up with yet, and it'll draw us out later in the evening. Let me stay and finish here. They just became a more important part of the whole function.
Now, another thing you've told me is that if one employee saw another employee getting rude or surly with a customer, he knew that could affect the profitability of the store. And what would he do about that?
Well, it happened to me. And one time a customer was really getting upset and stuff. And my dandruff was getting up a little bit too. Next thing you know, my assistant manager I heard over the intercom, Mr. Erickson, line 1. I said, excuse me, sir. I went over, got on line. I was on dial tone. I looked out and my assistant manager had taken over the customer. And because he knew I was not handling it, and here was, I have to admit, a human being that was not doing it right. And I was the owner, manager of the company, of the store at that time. So I could see that if they got into it, and for the assistant manager to take action like that was, to me, unheard of.
That was pretty quick thinking.
It was great.
So customer service. Oh, I know you like to mention that when you saw what was going on at Les Schwab, that the guys, tire changers, when somebody drove into the parking lot, by the time they were getting out of their car, somebody was there to wait on them. Tell me about that.
Danny, one of the hardest things, and we didn't quite get completely there, but one of the number one things that I found when I went out west there to Schwab was every store I visited, before I could hardly get out of the car, one of their employees would stand beside asking, could he help me? And I couldn't believe, I thought, well, that's this store. No, it was in every store, and it was part of the deal. And if you think about it, there's people that are not comfortable coming into automotive repair facility. And that's what I was in. I happened to be mostly in the tire side of it, but there was services we did to complement our tire. The point is, these people, when you start the whole situation, if you think about it, with someone standing behind to there to help you. Because there's times, you drive up and there's cars all over, but someone, regardless, still met me at that car than when I drove up.
And it would be a little different than going to a car dealership where, you walk onto the lot and they're coming out of the woodwork.
That's right.
A little different. This was a little more like friendlier and help.
Oh, it was. And they didn't necessarily make the sale. They'd just say, sir, John in there is waiting on you. He's our inside guy, or he's the guy that's meeting sales today. But I want you to know that, make sure, and I'll walk you up to the door, and they do it. And boom, that same person would be back in a tire changer in a matter of 30 seconds. And he was designated at that time. And so that's how you put that together is a different story. But the point is to get that on every customer that shows up. I recently ran into where Schwab has put a new tire store in. The number one thing that was relayed to me, Dick, you can't believe it. I pulled up to the store and they were standing beside my car when I opened the door. And I'm thinking, I haven't been to a Schwab store in 5 years. They're still doing it.
And that's amazing, too, because Schwab was sold to a private equity group years ago, and they're still carrying on that great tradition.
Amen. Amen.
And also about that, you talked about the discomfort that a lot of people have getting service for their car. They don't know what's going on with the car. They don't know what they need. It requires trust.
Amen.
And sometimes you go to a service provider and there's almost an adversarial relationship because you feel like, oh, they are going to get me. They're going to try to get me.
Yeah.
By a friendly greeting, coming out to the car, the store's already overcoming that. You've got a friend here.
That exactly, Danny. It's such an important first start. Now, what happens beyond that, carry it through. And what I found with that was the only starting point, but they were consisting about that starting point. And then you moved into the next guy and how he treated. But you touched on it. What you're working towards is trust. Can they trust me? Because every person I've ever met has got some bad memories of getting their car repaired, whether it's for tires or for shocks, whatever it is. And number one reason is most of us don't know that much about the car anyhow. Well, I can look and I need tires, I think. Well, I go in and, what's he going to do? Now I'm in their world.
So the profit sharing really paid off in good customer service. The employees wanted to be friendly with people because they knew that would help the profitability of the store. And you just said something about...
Well, they had something at stake. I mean, you think about it, when someone is 5 feet from me mistreating or talking rudely to a customer or not even acknowledging their problem or something like that, all of a sudden I'm thinking my bonus is getting eroded. This guy is mistreating a customer, and I don't know who he's going to talk to when he leaves here about how he's getting treated. So that stake that they had for what was going on, they had, that guy was representing them, even though he was not. I'm not in the problem right now, but he's mishandling the problem, and I don't like that. He's fooling with my livelihood.
So good customer service wasn't just a good idea for the employees. It wasn't something you got into their heads with, weekly meetings or whatever. It meant something to them in the form of profit sharing.
It became a way of life. It was just like, I never, as I'd visit and watch, I never saw any confrontations going on. I saw some problems being solved sometimes. I remember one time I was out in Washington there at one of their stores there. And the point is, someone came in with a problem, and he'd waited a little longer than he thought he should, and he brought it up to the manager. Manager stopped everything he did, took 3-4 employees from other jobs, put them on that car, and the guy was gone in 10 minutes. Boom. Took on a problem. Let's solve this problem right now. Not so much that it stopped everything, but it did stop something for a few minutes. But one guy was going to take 20 minutes. 4 guys, it was going to take 10 minutes. So it's all about the customer. How do I keep the customer happy? How do I keep them? Yeah.
And one of the ways Suntire kept customers happy was free flat repair.
Yes.
How'd that work?
Well, it was, when a person has a flat, I found out early in life, I don't care who it is, if you're driving around, even if you took the flat tire off your car, that would make it even add to the problem, is you're worried, what if I have a flat tire driving around because I don't have a spare? And so it became a bigger issue than even tires being worn down to a point I don't have a problem yet. I have a problem right now I need to get solved, and it's breaking up my day, and there's nothing quick. So flat repair, we tried to work it into the system as quick as possible, get that customer fixed and on their way.
And not only that, you told me that those customers that came in with a flat to be fixed, they went to the top of the list.
That was the point I was just trying to make. I didn't word it right, but maybe we should do that. Yeah. But you had to be kind of careful, because other customers, there was times we'd take them to the back of the store and jack them up back there. So the other customers who are waiting for their alignment, which a flat tire wasn't going to change, wasn't going to slow down the system for alignment. But he was saying, well, that guy just showed up and I'm fixing. He's getting in and out quicker than I am. What's going on? So we had to be, but I don't know if that's kind of inconsistency. If I was with the guy, I said, now you got to be careful. So we'd have ways to make it not so obvious, but that flat repair person went to the top of the list. Exactly.
You've been listening to Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick Erickson's book of the same name is available at Amazon.com. If you have a question for Dick to address in a future podcast, or if you have a story about how you've seen profit sharing work in the real world, please send an email to me, Danny Murphy. The email address is danny@successstory.biz. That's successstory, spelled out completely, .biz. Thank you for listening.